It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. The fire fades, and the Lords go without thrones.
Hello and welcome. My name is Dark Knight, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 worst Dark Souls 3 boss fights. So sit back, sip some Estus, let the countdown begin.
5.
Yhorm, the descendant of an ancient conqueror, but was asked by the very people once subjugated to lead them, serving as both a weighty blade and a stone-hard shield. We find Yhorm in his throne room at the end of the profane capital. I really like certain aspects of this boss battle, but ultimately it was underwhelming as the area itself. This is a puzzle gimmick type of boss fight. Entering the arena, Yhorm will stand up from his throne and charge at the player. If you paid attention, you can see an item glowing next to the throne. This item is essential to killing Yhorm and fighting the giant as From Software intended. The item is none other than the Storm Ruler. For anyone who has played Demon Souls should have an exact idea on how this boss fight will play out. The Storm Ruler is a weapon first seen in Demon Souls. It has a devastating AoE and is used to fight the Storm King. The weapon is useless outside of the old hero Archstone and was primarily designed to be only used against the Storm King. Both Yhorm and the Storm King can be killed without the Storm Ruler, but the latter is a more well-rounded and enjoyable battle. Taking down Yhorm without the Storm Ruler is a very long chore, although not very challenging. The fallen Lord of Cinder does have a large amount of HP and doesn't take much damage even from a plus 10. Sure, there are ways to increase your potential damage output, but the battle is very long and tedious. Using the Storm Ruler is really recommended here. Yhorm himself is a towering giant. His moveset is fairly easy to dodge. Players shouldn't have a hard time charging the Storm Ruler and using the weapon art to do meaningful damage. Target lock Yhorm's head and the fight will be over very quickly. Initially I was left disappointed in this boss fight, but I can see why From Software decided not to make this a more conventional encounter. Based on the previous games, Dark Souls 2 is the only other Souls game to feature giants, the Last Giant and Giant Lord. Both these boss fights were terribly executed. Hacking away at the giant's feet was a mundane task. I'm sure From Software was wary of this problem and not to repeat past mistakes. For me though, the boss fight was underwhelming, regardless of how amazing it looked. And there were some great visual design ideas here. The Storm Ruler's description reads, Yhorm the Giant once held 2 of these, but gave one to the humans that doubted him and left the other to a dear friend, before facing his fate as a Lord of Cinder. Maybe Yhorm shouldn't have parted ways with his twin Storm Rulers.
4.
Born from the Chaos Flame, the old Demon King is now amongst the last of a dying race, residing in the pits of the Smouldering Lake, surrounded by the corpses of his fellow brethren. The Demon King is a relatively straightforward opponent with a slow and well telegraphed moveset. His moveset consists of slow swings from his Great Hammer or breathing fire in form of an AoE, both of which can be dodged by moving behind the boss. The old Demon King is by no means a terrible boss battle, but for me it was a very boring encounter. Its moveset is to blame here. Slow sweeps and long overhead attacks are easily telegraphed. But what annoyed me most was constantly getting stuck or caught underneath the boss. You will almost certainly get stuck around the demon's Great Hammer or get stuck rolling into its tail. I endured many deaths due to this alone. As seen in previous Souls games, From Software have a hard time with larger boss encounters. For the player, it's too easy just to run and stay underneath the boss whilst hacking away. This is somewhat alleviated as the old king does have a fast AoE fireball attack and his lava breath covers his feet. Phase 2 of the fight makes things a lot easier. The old Demon King will ignite itself in flames, adding fire damage to its melee attacks. It has a few new tricks in this phase. A slow meteor shower gives the player ample time to charge in before being bombarded. The demon will also conjure a circle of fire that will move inwards or outwards from him. Around 10 to 20% health remaining, the Demon King will release its flame, creating a devastating AoE which can one-shot you if you are not careful. The attack will leave the demon hunched over on the ground, unable to fight properly, forcing it to slowly drag itself towards the player. As the power of the Chaos Flame leaves the old demon, strike the killing blow. The shriveled old demon king is now like a clump of burnt ash, but he is the last living witness of the chaos of Osiris.
3,
The consumed king Osiris went mad, trying to harness his royal blood for a greater purpose, leading him to the heretics of the Grand Archives, where he discovered the twisted worship of Seath the Pale Drake.
You ignorant slaves. Finally taken notice, have you?
This creepy looking human dragonoid abomination is arguably my most dreaded fight in the entire game. There are a few factors to this, which I will talk about, but let's start with how the boss fight plays out. The battle starts with a cutscene of King Osiris rambling. He then proceeds to stand on his two legs holding his staff, whilst cradling an imaginary child. In the first phase, his attacks are quite slow and easy to avoid. He does have a tail whip and an AoE to keep you from staying around his feet. The second phase is where the problem lies. After you deal enough damage, he will scream for Ocelot to show himself. As King Osiris loses control, he then proceeds to stand on all four limbs, adopting a more ferocious attack style. The fight gets really messy from here on out. Osiris has some very unpredictable moves that do a lot of damage. His charge move is very quick, similar to the Pontiff's Beast in the Boreal Valley. Rolling either side will help, but the attack has a very weird hurt box. What really annoyed me about the fight was how buggy the boss encounter felt. Sometimes he would attack nothing but air or charge in the wrong direction. Clearly this wasn't a design choice. Sure, Osiris is losing his mind and I think he's blind, similar to Seath the Pale Drake. But during the fight it came across as a bit buggy, and I'm not sure if From Software intended for this. Even on multiple playthroughs, I still haven't gotten used to his moveset. The randomness of his moveset might keep in touch with his transformation into a beast, but this is one battle I don't mind skipping.
2,
The cursed rotted great wood used to be a spirit tree until it was used as a vessel for unwanted curses by the inhabitants of the undead settlement. This led to its transformation into a grotesque beast. Being an optional boss battle, the cursed rotted great wood does drop the transposing kiln. Without the transposing kiln, Ludleth won't be able to transpose boss souls into weapons and items. Once you enter the boss gate, you immediately see the undead settlement inhabitants prostrating and praying to the tree. Engaging the undead and killing a few will trigger the rotted greatwood to spring into life. Damaging the rotted greatwood tasks the player to look for the round fleshy growths on his body. Attacking wooden-like areas does no damage. All the while you will be bombarded with the undead that infinitely respawn, so ignoring them is your best course of action. Once you deal enough damage, the ground will give way and you will enter the second phase of the boss fight. This is where things go south. The boss will now stand up and try to crush you whilst you look for more fleshy growth to disperse. Ranged attacks work best, but the beast has a white arm protruded from its chest, swiping and stomping the player if you get too close. Attacking the boss from a distance while evading its white arm and corrosive liquid quickly become a mundane task. The lock-on will be of no help, as manually aiming for the fleshy growths is the best way to approach. If you have no ranged attacks, the boss fight quickly becomes a chore. The boss fight isn't particularly challenging or even hard, even though on phase 2 it does have a few cheap attacks. But besides from that, it's not really an exciting boss fight. Even the first time around, I didn't enjoy this boss fight. It's a shame, I really do like the boss's design and the boss area, but the second phase is a laborious task indeed.
1,
Waiting in the ruins of Archdragon Peak is the Ancient Wyvern. On entering the boss arena, it will descend from the destroyed pillars to challenge the player. Once the player runs past the menacing wyvern, the boss fight is essentially over. Yeah. Yes, you heard correctly, the boss encounter is practically done once you get past him upon entering the boss arena. There's a path to the left, following it will lead you to a long bridge and eventually a ledge above the wyvern's head. Position yourself correctly and a well-timed plunging attack will one-shot the wyvern, ensuring your victory. The wyvern can be defeated without resorting to the plunging method. This requires the player to stay underneath the wyvern so it spams its foot stomp, and occasionally it will fly overhead for a fire breath below. This method is tedious, and there isn't much space or margin for error as the Wyvern's fire breath will do heavy damage. It's exceedingly clear that From Software wanted players to run around the destroyed ruins until they came across the ledge for a plunging strike. The Wyvern won't give chase once you run past him at the beginning of the boss arena, but sometimes he will try to catch you with his fire breath, so be wary of that. Not a great fight, and on subsequent playthroughs the boss won't last more than a few minutes. Reaching the ledge for a plunging strike is littered with enemies, but light armor and decent stamina should be more than adequate to get you there. Just running past the enemies is the best tactic here. I'm not sure what From Software were thinking with this boss fight, but shades of the Demon God come to mind from Demon Souls. The Dragon God, the first gimmick puzzle boss fight in the Soul series. Although the Dragon God boss encounter was a major letdown to say the least, it still had a certain ebb and flow to it. Mix in the Dragon God's imposing figure and a genuine sense of threat, 1 or 2 punches from the demon would be more than enough to send you back to the Nexus. All the above are missing from this fight. Although both encounters are very similar, there's no present danger. The snake men are all too easy to avoid, even the larger snake men who pose more of a threat. Just keep running, and that's all you have to do. Keep running, keep running, keep running. This is just bad. So there you have it, that's my top 5 worst Dark Souls 3 boss fights. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sure your list is different to mine. Who would make it in your top 5? So if you enjoyed the video, why not give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already.